She ordered me to sleep with her husband. Consent was not optional. I'm an Egyptian household servant. Abram is the master, Sarai is his wife. Later, people would call them Abraham and Sarah, the same two people, just new names. And I am Hagar. Now, God told Abram he'd have a child. Many, many years had passed. Sarai couldn't get pregnant. Every month would hit them like a slap. The women stared at her belly, and the men muttered pity. She felt shamed for not being a mother, and the shame always looks for a body it can throw. Well, one morning, I was grinding grain in Sarai's tent. The fire was so hot, and the oil smoke was burning my throat. She sent the other girls away from the tent, then tied the flap up with shaking hands. She looked straight at me as if she was staring straight through me. Glaringly, she said, "Go to my husband." That was it. There was no conversation. There was no choice. I was her servant. She didn't mean just take a message. She meant use your body in his bed so she could claim the baby. Now, where we lived, a wife could use a servant as a surrogate and count the child as hers. It's an old rule and a very, very cruel rule. And of course I went because servants don't get to say no. That's what the house means here. Your name is on the chore list, and so is your body. I walked in there. There was a dim lamp, a mat on the floor, and Abram didn't force me, but he also didn't ask. He just treated me like I was paperwork in the dark. I was Sarai's plan, his compliance, my body. And I'll tell you, I just stared at a crooked stitch in the tent and counted breaths so I wouldn't cry. I went stiff as a board to try to make it end faster. If you're waiting for me to call this holy, you can stop waiting. It was something I had to do to survive. When it was over, I washed my face with shaking hands. My mouth was still filled with smoke. I could taste metal in the back of my throat. And I went back to work. Where was I supposed to go? There was no door I could lock behind me. And many weeks later, food turned against me. Morning sickness climbed up my throat, and I knew I was pregnant. At first, I was relieved. Maybe the camp would finally unclench. Fear came right behind it. Now the promise was inside of me. And people get weird when power moves. I hoped pregnancy would earn respect, but it didn't. Sarai looked at me like I'd stolen something from her body with mine. And Abram drifted to the edges and said the sentence cowards love. Do what seems right to you, as he handed me to her like I was just a broom. More work, fewer kind words, and rules that shifted just enough to make me wrong. Move fast, I'm careless. Move slow, I'm proud. Smile, I provoke. Quiet, I sulk. You can't win a game where the scorekeeper is always angry. And I'm sure you're wondering how I must have felt. Well, about Sarai, she used me when she was desperate and blamed me when she could breathe again. And Abram, he loved quiet more than courage, and let his silence carry a sin he didn't want to touch. And being there with Abram and Sarai was unbearable, so I ran. I took to the road toward Shur. That's the way back toward Egypt, to my people. because staying looked like slow damage and leaving looked like a chance not to die on the inside. The desert makes your mouth do math. How many sips to the next scrap of shade? How many steps before your knees stop listening? Sand like castles in my sandals. The heat was pressing on the back of my neck like a hand that wouldn't lift. I walked until blisters split, then walked anyway. I was determined to get far, far away from them. And as a miracle, I came upon a spring. I dropped to my knees and drank like someone might snatch that water away. Then a voice at the water said my name, my actual name, not hey girl or slave woman. It said, Hagar, where have you come from and where are you going? I replied, I'm running from Sarai. But as for where are you going, I had nothing. There wasn't a safe where yet. He didn't call me dramatic. He didn't tell me to crawl back and apologize. He told me two things that I could hold. You will have a son. Name him Ishmael. That means God hears, because God has heard your misery. And your son will have a future that doesn't depend on anyone's pity. And you know, I believed him. I gave God a name back. EL-ROI. That means God who sees me. If you ever needed one person to say your name and mean it, you know why I trusted that voice. So I went back, not because it's safe, but because I wasn't invisible anymore. Sarai still watched like she could burn a hole through me. Abram still avoided my eyes like silence was mercy. I worked with one hand and guarded my belly with the other. When panic tried to run the room inside my chest, I repeated what was true. God sees, God hears. And as God promised, I gave birth to a son. We called him Ishmael, which means God hears. The first time he cried, something in me cracked wide open and poured out. At night, I put my mouth to his hair and whispered his name for him. And for me, God hears, God hears, God hears. Years stacked, and then Sarah had a son too, Isaac. Real joy moved into her tent. But joy doesn't erase jealousy. It just dresses it better. So one afternoon, she saw Ishmael playing. That was enough. She said to Abraham, drive out Hagar and her son. He will not share the inheritance with mine. And that one jealous, cruel sentence out of Sarah's mouth ended our place with them. Abraham handed me bread and one skin of water, like a severance he did not want to sign. Sarah looked away. So I took my boy's hand and we walked into the wilderness of Beersheba. When the water ran out, the world went completely quiet in the wrong way. My boy's lips went white. His breath became thin. I did the math that no mother wants to do. I laid him in the only shade I could find, a scratchy bush, because I couldn't carry him and hunt for help at the same time. And as he was laying under that bush, and his breath was starting to slow, I walked far enough away and put both hands over my mouth, but yet a blood-curdling scream still escaped my lips. And then suddenly I heard God call me by name again. He said, Hagar, don't be afraid. God has heard the boy where he is. Lift him up. I will make him a great nation. As I kept walking, I saw a well. I mean, it could have been there the whole time, but grief tends to blind you. So I went to the well and I filled the skin with my shaking hands. I poured water all over my son's hair, into his mouth, and onto the dust like an offering. His chest was beginning to move like a rhythm that I was begging for. I needed to see that rhythm. I needed to know that we both lived. And later, people called Ishmael wild, like it was an insult. I call him free. The desert taught him the bow and the map of the wind. I taught him to say his own name when he felt small. Ishmael means God hears. Say it until your heart believes you're not alone. You want my feelings plainly? Before all of this, I did respect Sarah's ability. And during it, I feared what her shame and anger do when they have the power in their hands. After it all, I won't excuse her. I also know long waiting can twist a heart until it throws knives at the nearest body. I'm done carrying her choices inside me. I'm setting them down and walking away. Abraham is not a monster in my mouth. He's a man with a promise who stayed quiet way too often. I stopped waiting for his eyes to find me. I trust the God who found me at the spring and again in the dust. If this sounds anything like your life, used then blamed, told to smile and be grateful while you're being pushed out, putting your child in the only patch of shade you can find and asking God to handle the rest, well, listen to me. You are seen, you are heard. There is a well. You may not see it yet. It can still be there. And I remember the names people threw like stones. I also remember the names God gave us like water. EL-ROI, God who sees me. Ishmael, God hears. I wasn't chosen by people. I was found by God. And God was enough to have me walk back when I needed to, and to walk forward when I had to, and to lift my boy when he couldn't stand. Well, you've heard Sarah's side, and now you've heard mine. Again, my name is Hagar, and I thank you so much for listening to my confession. And if you haven't heard Sarah's confession, hers is in the episode before this on Gospel Girl Confessions. And always remember, the God who sees me sees you too.